Okay, hello everyone. We'll get started and welcome along to the webinar this evening. First up, I just want to recognise that I know you've all gone through a couple of the most challenging, tough weeks of your whole health career. So I just wanted to nod to that, but also acknowledge you for taking a space in your brain to come and turn up to the webinar tonight. So my name's Karen Finnan. I'm a physiotherapist and the director of online.physio. And this is an entirely online physiotherapy practice that I've been running for the last 8 or so years. Now, for the last 2 or 3 years, I've started to have other health professionals ask me questions about how they could transition to the online space and to do digital practice and online consultations. And so I've started to develop lots of resources in helping people to get started. So tonight is all about rapid fire, going through all different aspects that you need to be aware of and be across in order to look at the potential of transitioning to telepractice or online consultations. Now, obviously this is an option. This is a new delivery format that can be used. It's not a silver bullet, it's not a cure-all, but it's certainly one of our great options that we have at this moment. So, what are we going to chat about tonight? Well, the first thing I want to recognise is that at this moment, we're in a very unusual situation that ultimately at the end of the day is short-term. It's not going to last forever, weeks, months, we're not quite sure yet, but we do want to set up quickly to survive this time if we're going to be looking to do online consultations. However, for some of you, this may be a more sustainable option for the future. So I also want to reflect that although we can do things to set up quickly, if we want to make a more sustainable practice down the track, we need to think about a few other things to make it more user-friendly, make it more time efficient for you and all of that sort of stuff. So I'll be sort of balancing between the two. What's the minimum you need to get going quickly, but also what are some considerations for the future? I also want to stretch your brain to see what some of the possibilities are down the track. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about the research evidence and the proof. My background is in physio, so I'm going to draw on that to just show you and give you an idea of what we're finding out there with these consultations from our space to give you some applications for the myotherapy setting. I'm going to talk about clinical applications, and I'm sure this is what a lot of you are thinking where the rubber hits the road, where how do we actually do this? We're so used to using our hands, and so I'll be sort of talking through all of that. Now, it's not all beer and skittles, and there are certainly some considerations you need to make. Online consultation may not be suitable for everyone, so we're going to go through some of the things you may need to think about just to make sure that you're selecting the right people and that you're safe to practice. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a discussion about online healthcare without talking about the tech, and so I'm just going to give you a few pointers on the types of things that you need to get started. And again, the basics, maybe if you want to get a few more little bells and whistles, some tips for that as well. Now, we are going to then dig deep into a few of your legal and safety considerations, because even though we are setting up quickly, we want to do it properly, and we certainly want to be effective, secure, and safe for your side of things and also for your client side of things. The other question I'm so commonly asked at the moment is, what do we charge? And also, now that we don't have someone to bring their credit card in, how do we take those payments online? Also, there's a lot of work going on in the rebate space at the moment. It's moving so quickly, it's hard to keep up, but we'll just touch base on a little bit of that. Now, at the end of the day, one of the biggest challenges that you'll all potentially face is actually how to convert maybe your existing patients that you want to continue to be able to look after. How do you convert them to telehealth? It's not as simple as offering it. If it's a fairly new concept to us, it's certainly very new to your clients, and we need to look at sort of how we can package that so that it's a logical progression for them to say yes. And then finally, next steps, what we can do now to get started quickly and get going. Now, I'm going to barrel through this content, but if you do have questions, you can type them in, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end. I could start going through those questions. Rest assured too, if I don't get to your question tonight, we will make sure that we get those all answered for you, because yes, obviously online consultations, it raises a lot of questions. So yeah, so let's get stuck in, guys. All right, so I was talking a little bit about setting up quickly versus setting up sustainably for these online consultations. So obviously in the shorter term, what we're probably looking at is, you know, many of you may have a wonderful group of clients that you've been looking after and you want to maintain that relationship with them. So you've already got that client load and you're looking to sort of potentially switch some of them over. These are generally therefore going to be more follow-up consultations. I know that initially your time may be limited to get technical infrastructure set up. So how can we keep that simple? And look, at the end of the day, we know that an element of this is to be able to keep some sort of financial survival going for you. And at the end of the day, even though we are setting up rapidly, quality and safety is still really crucial. Now, mindset-wise, when we're looking at a more sustainable model down the track, this is where you are actually able to recruit new patients that perhaps maybe aren't even in your suburb or location. That's a whole different equation to be able to recruit new patients to an online consultation service. There's amazing ways that you can start to automate and streamline your processes so that it takes less of your time to do the administrative side of things, and you can just spend more time on sort of direct client-facing care. So it can be things like intake forms and, you know, booking gateways and all of that sort of stuff. Now, we'll be talking about pricing tonight, and I'm going to talk about sort of pricing now, but also I'll be talking about the big picture and how pricing models may change as we move forward in the online consultation space. So there's, yeah, we can start to use some new concepts, I think. At the end of the day, when you're setting up a more sustainable practice, marketing becomes really important. So, and that comes back to, you know, being able to recruit those new clients. In the future, it may be that you're back up and running again, you know, COVID is over and you've got your clinic practice service up and running again, but this may be something you want to continue as some sort of additional revenue or a flexibility option, that you're not sort of necessarily chained to a cubicle anymore. And that's, you know, a real beauty of it at the end of the day. Once this is all said and done, we're pinned to our homes or clinics at the moment, but in future, obviously, we're by nature very mobile, so it can give you some flexibility there as well. Now, having said all that, guys, of course, you know, a lot of my focus will be on the more rapid setup information tonight. But if you get a little bit bamboozled by a few more tech setup features and things that I talk about, then just say, don't worry, that's for the bigger picture down the track, but at least I'm entertaining thoughts of what can be done and what's possible. All right, so one of the first questions that you may have, but also one of the first questions that you may face if you commence online consultations is, do they work? Where's the proof that it works? And we all like to practice our evidence-based care. So we look to the research. Now, my background is physiotherapy. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what they found in the physio space, because obviously there are some lovely synergies with myotherapy. So I'll tell you a bit of my background, but it just sort of shows you what's possible and what we're seeing in the research for traditionally hands-on professions like myotherapy and physiotherapy. Now, I don't expect you to read everything on this table, not at all. It's probably making your eyes blur at the moment, but what I want you to see is that this is a collection of all the journal articles that relate to telehealth in physiotherapy. There are many, they span many years, and what I can tell you is the results are overall quite favourable. And I'm not sure if there's anyone who has a similar sort of collection in the myotherapy space, but certainly this is a good project to start for the association or for people interested in telehealth, is to start to collect these articles. This is a digital table that I have set up. It's embedded in a blog post on my website, and I can connect people to it with simply a link. So whenever anyone asks about the research, I can just send them the link. They'll click on the link and it will populate with this table, which obviously is a lovely way to suddenly make them go, oh gosh, I see there's research showing that this works and is effective. So what are we seeing in the physio space? Well, we're seeing that our diagnostic, so our ability to know and work out what's going on, there's no real increase in the error in online diagnosis when compared to the in-person setting. So that's really reassuring to know that we're being as accurate with working out sort of what's going on in the online space. We found, and this is going to be an amazing one for your clients, that patients self-treat more often. So they're developing that internal locus of control, meaning that you're able to empower them with the tools to get themselves better. Now, I know that you probably all do this normally anyway paired up with your manual therapy work, but obviously this, makes them more sustainable down the track. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the outcomes, we find that they're similar or better than in face-to-face care. Now, look, we'd be happy if that was similar, but sometimes the outcomes were better. And again, that links back to us being amazing health coaches to help people to get themselves better. So there are some challenges though, and the research, the results can depend on the clinician experience. So I think what you find is that by having time in the clinic, hands-on in the clinic, you sort of learn a bit more, I guess, clinical reasoning skills and that sort of stuff, which stands you in good stead when you're translating to the online space. So so having that bit of experience is certainly valuable. Now, not all conditions can be managed online, and that's something that we'll talk a little bit about later on. And until now, one of the biggest challenges have been the lack of rebates, but as we're seeing, this is rapidly changing. So there's some good news there, but it's also bringing up some challenges at the moment in terms of ensuring quality and looking at sustainability for the future. So when I talk about that research, I know it is in the physio field, but if you're interested in either the digital table or in at least having a look through that, if you head to my website, karenfinnan.com, on the blog tab, there it is there. You can click on it and then you can start to see some of that research. So that's a really good idea to then translate to, seeing if there's sort of research in the myotherapy field as well. All right. So yes, we know it's effective and can work, but how does it actually happen? So what's the clinical side of things? So as I go through this process, I want you to think a little bit about what you do when somebody walks in your door, walks into your room, the steps that you take and how you might translate that to the online space. Now, invariably, the first thing you do is ask them questions. How are you going? What are you feeling? Where does it hurt? How long have you had that for? And this Q&A can very easily be translated to the online space. Now, in your short term, when you're making a quick transition and you're jumping on to do an online consultation, you would do this Q&A face-to-face on a video platform. Potential for the future, what we now do at Online Physio, we've been set up for a while, is we actually have a questionnaire that people can fill out digitally before they even have their appointment. So we've collected all their patient details, but also a lot of those answers to those questions. We get to read that and comprehend it before they even jump on the video call with us. So Q&A on a video call, or potential down the track for intake forms that collect a lot of that information. The bonus of collecting the information beforehand means the actual video consultation can be a little bit shorter. And sometimes this is effective depending on connection issues and also just time management as well. All right. Now, of course, at this point, we need to make sure with our clinical reasoning hat on, are we comfortable treating this person online? Are we comfortable managing their situation? And so at this point, if you don't think they're in the right place, either if they should see someone in person or they need to see another health professional, no problem at all. This is where you would refer them on. And I think it's really, really important for you to know that you never have to be compelled to treat anyone online that you're not comfortable treating. So there's absolutely no issue at all with referring them on at that point. Now, for us at Online Physio, once we've collected that intake form, we can read through it, and that's a great way for us to screen and see if we feel that they're A, suitable for physio, and B, suitable for the telehealth format. Most of the time they are, they're self-selecting, they're coming to us knowing what they need and what to expect. But if you're doing that on a video call, obviously at that point, you know, it might be that the call is then shortened, but you're able to send someone in the direction that they need to go. Now, on our end of things, if we do receive an intake form, we don't believe they're suitable for an online consultation, we do choose to refund at that point. Easy to do, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So just something to keep in mind. And that can sometimes be, if you're advertising your services on the website, a good way to give people reassurance that it's okay if we don't feel that you're suitable for the online space, we'll get you where you need to go. All right, so then we move on to your movement-based assessment. So obviously you want to see somebody's symmetry, you want to see what their muscle tone is like, you want to see a little bit of how they're moving. And obviously this is where, you know, it starts in your mind to get a little bit challenging of, you know, how can we do this? So there are a few ways to do it. There's the simple version of I stand up, I move away from my desk, or the person on the other end can stand up, move away from the desk. You can either imitate things that they imitate, or this is what you get very good at in the online space, calmly explain to the patient where you want them to go and what you want them to do. So in the in-person clinic, you're either used to jumping up or quickly putting your hands on someone to guide them through perhaps some movements, to assess them, or to run your fingers over something. But it then becomes about guiding someone to do that movement so that you can watch it. And of course, you then need those prompting words. What does it feel when you do that? What's stopping you from going further? Where is the pain? Now, the next thing really relevant for you guys is, you know, where are they feeling it? And, you know, directing someone to palpate their own muscles is a tool that we really need. And it's empowering for the client as well, because they get more familiar with where things are. You've got the picture of the muscular system in your head, but they start to learn, you know, where things are troublesome and therefore where they can help themselves. So sometimes I'll do this in different formats than the video format. So I might, if I know someone's coming in with a pain in a particular area, if it's fairly point specific, I might get them to just take a digital photo with their finger on the painful point and send that through to me beforehand. So I've sort of got a good idea of where that is. You've always got the option of things like a screenshot if you are on a video call and they point to the area of the pain or the expanse of the pain, so you can see if that, you know, that tight area is getting smaller or bigger. You do have the ability to screenshot. We'll talk about storage of digital files later. So all different ways that you just need to start to explore with the patient how you can collect that information about their body and their muscles and how they're feeling. So that's the challenging part, but really it's just about using your clinical reasoning. So what information do you need? What do you need to know to collect the right information? What movements might tell you that? What might their fingers be able to be guided to touch that you can't? And all the while you're educating the patient in how to assess themselves. All right, then this part is what you'll be really good at. Explaining to them what's going on, explaining to them how different muscular systems contribute, explaining to them the anatomy that they don't understand. And because you're now in the digital format, there's a beautiful option for bringing in things like anatomical images, even little, you know, videos showing muscles contracting and relaxing, all of that sort of stuff. So now that we're in the online space, it's always important to educate, even in the in-person space, as you well know, but we've got a really great format to do that. And this is where we really move into that patient empowerment, so that people are equipped with the knowledge that assists them to self-manage under your guidance. So it can be even better than in the in-person space because we've got a screen, we've got screen sharing. Depending on the video software you use, you can pop up whiteboards and draw pictures. You can draw over an anatomical picture. So you can keep it simple just by explaining, but you can really use digital tools as well. I even also have props handy that I can pick up and show people, this is my shoulder model, for example. So it can sometimes help to have pictures. Actually, you can see in the background there, I do have an anatomical picture. You can even do that in your manual version if you've got, I mean, I think those muscle posters are a little bit big, but if you have individual muscle images handy, for example, that might be something that you're easily able to show people and to educate with them. So this is where, guys, I really want you to expand what you think of yourself as a clinician and where your value is. You know, the consumer very much thinks that we are all about our hands, but actually we're incredibly smart at A, being that detective, solving the problem of what's going on, and then B, moving into that description and explanation to empower the patient so they really know what's going on. And then C is giving them some tools and advice on how to get better. And again, this is where you guys are going to be amazing. So what equipment do they have available to them? Now, in terms of equipment, it can be that they then need to order something online. That's something you can look at in the short term. You might just send them a link. In the longer term, if you already have a clinic set up, you may have a supply of these things. That can then become something that you can sell online, even looking at bundles and packages down the track. So this is where that education helps. Now, we use PhysiTrack. I'm not sure how many of you use that out there as well, but obviously it's a brilliant way to give really good descriptions on that app so that people have it in their pocket and they can get onto their own self-management. Now, the beauty of PhysiTrack is it also contains a secure messaging feature. A really important part of an online consultation is the follow-up. So once they've had that consultation, they've set the wheels in motion of doing all the right things to help self-manage, you need to make sure you keep in touch with them. And this can even be in the form of setting a reminder or putting a recall in the practice management software. But what we found was, rather than set up another consultation just to, you know, spread them out by a week and, you know, spend another 20 minutes on a video call, we found over time that really what our clients want is just a frequent ability to update us, to ask a question, to check in. And we love the ability to frequently just check in, tweak programs, see how they're going as well. So if we talk about short-term rapid setup, I advise a more direct translation. Initial consultation, follow-up consultation. And this is, you know, as the rebates come through, that's what they'll be expecting until we all have time to look at, is this the model that really works? I'll go into it a little bit more later on, but we do pricing per period of access, because we find we put a lot of work in the front end of getting people set up, and then it's more communication and redos of programs rather than needing, you know, big sort of consultations to follow up. So again, a little bit of food for thought for the future, but you can do just a direct translation to a follow-up consultation. And look, for a lot of your clients, it will be about accountability. You know, they may even have the tools that they need to get themselves better, but can they sit with you and go through that, where you help them, you guide them, you advise them? If they're not sure whether something's hurting too much, should they push it, should they not? You're right there with them to do it. So there's still value in that follow-up consultation to be giving accountability and giving that guidance. All right, so safety is obviously a really important thing. And when we're talking about who to treat and not to treat online, you know what, it's actually a lot more logical than you think. So the ultimate person not to treat is one you wouldn't normally be comfortable treating in your bricks and mortar practice anyway. So if they had something that was a bit more medical and you felt they needed to see a doctor, or they had some neural symptoms that you weren't sure about, if you wouldn't be comfortable treating them in a bricks and mortar setting, then it's not appropriate to then be treating them online. Now, also, there are obviously certain populations that you just need to be more cautious with. So if there's an older population, for example, you need to be looking at, you know, is there a falls risk in, and not that that rules you out of that population whatsoever. There are always ways around this, but it's just considerations we have to be aware of. So if it was someone older that perhaps had balance issues, maybe you're doing assessment more in a seated based position, or maybe you're requiring that someone is there with them for the consultation. So just some extra considerations there. Now, another logical one, if you're managing someone's aches and pains online and they're not getting better or they're getting worse, obviously that's when you might need to reassess. Is this within the normal time frame I would expect for this to take to settle, or is this now dragging out a little bit longer? As I say, this is similar to what you would do in the clinic. If someone wasn't getting better or they're getting worse and you just don't think it's heading in the right direction, refer on, refer appropriately, the same thing. And I think over time, and this is where that experience comes in for you to be translating your years of experience into the online space, you develop that clinical gut over time. So listen to it just the same as you would in person. So if you're not comfortable, if you feel they need to see someone in person, if you feel they need to see another health professional, if you feel a condition is not reacting the way you would expect it to, refer that on, not an issue at all. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the technology. And video selection is always a massive question that everyone has of, what video software should I choose? And it's a really tricky one to answer, mainly because new video softwares are being built all the time. Old ones are changing and developing and getting better and getting worse. So it's not easy to just put one name out there and say, this is the be all end all and that's what you want to use. We're also considering priced alternatives versus free alternatives. Obviously at the moment, budget is, important. So we've got to be mindful of that. But we also have to be mindful of our requirements for personal data and all of that sort of stuff. So to really dig down to the nitty-gritty, what we're looking at here are the Australian privacy principles. So these are the legal rules that dictate that if you run any kind of health service, it's your responsibility to keep your clients' confidential data safe. And a part of that is that you need to ensure that their sensitive information can't be unencrypted, hacked, intervened with in any way. So this is where platform selection is important. Is it secure and is it encrypted? So encrypted basically means that, I guess, what's happening between you and your client is scrambled so that an external person can't hack in and see and hear what you're doing. It means that it can't be decoded, basically. Now, some platforms that are owned by big corporations have the ability to unencrypt that information during a call, and often it's to collect data about usage and to build a better service and all of that sort of stuff. But in terms of a breach under the Australian privacy principles, if that video call between you and your client is unencrypted or is able to be unencrypted, that can be that you're not following your responsibilities under the Act. Now, this means that if you move forward with consultations with a platform that is known for a lack of security, then again, that can be sort of considered that you're breaching your responsibility under the Privacy Act. Now, the easiest way to know this, this is a little hack, is to Google the name of the video platform you're looking into and security breach and just see what the history is there. Now, this doesn't mean that it's an unsecure platform. It's just your way of knowing, has this platform got a checkered past? Are there frequent, breaches coming up with this platform? And it just enables you to make a more informed decision. So just remember that they're not likely to write about security breaches on their own website. If you go to that platform's website and look up their security section, they'll probably tell you all about how secure they are. But that is a good way to get a bit of an overview of is this a good platform or not. Now, at the end of all of that, you do have to meet those security requirements, but it is really important that it's easy to use. So particularly on the patient end, but also for you as a therapist as well. So some platforms, some video platforms like Zoom, for example, a lot of you, the first time you use Zoom, you don't even remember it, but you actually downloaded something to your computer. There are different versions of Zoom now that are more cloud-based, but depending, it can be a download to your computer. And sometimes that extra step is just a little too challenging. It creates a little bit too much friction for your client. There are other really secure, good quality video platforms that are simply click a link to join. So you can send that in an email, you can even send it in a text message to someone's phone, and all they need to do is tap on that link and your face will appear and the video consultation will begin. So that's something to consider as well. I always say it's really important to practice on both ends as well. Practice setting it up as the therapist, but also practice using it as a patient with a friend or a family member so that you know what the patient sees so that you can help guide them through it if they have issues. Now, I know you're probably all saying, well, just give me the names of a few platforms to use. And this is by no means exhaustive, but in terms of what I use, there are 2 or 3 that I alternate between, and I think it's always good to have a backup because if you learn anything working in tech for a while, it's that tech will always glitch, so you always need backups available. So Coviu, Coviu.com is a video platform that's customized for telehealth. It's an Australian-based platform, and that is cloud-based, click a link to join, really nice interface and very easy to use. So that's the main one that I have been using. Now, PhysiTrack, for those of you who use PhysiTrack, has an inbuilt video feature. It's fairly basic and the the video quality is a little bit average. So Coviu, your actual clarity will be better. PhysiTrack's a little bit more basic. And the challenge with PhysiTrack, it's great if it's a follow-up consultation and your client is already set up and using the app. But if they don't already have the app, there's quite a number of steps they have to go through to get to the initial video call. So I don't use PhysiTrack video feature for initial consultations. I sometimes use it for follow-ups. Now, having said that, I don't know if any of you are users of Clinico for your practice management software, but they have literally just released a video calling feature within their practice management software. So it has just gone live and I've been trialing it this week. So you click on you have your diary up, you click on the patient, start the video call, and they do the same on their end. Click on a link and you're calling within that video software. Now at this stage, it's basic. It doesn't have bells and whistles like screen sharing, whiteboards and all of that sort of stuff. But for those of you who are already Clinico users, that may be a bit of a no-brainer. And I know that Joel, the director of Clinico, is I think doing a free trial at the moment, and we'll look to some pricing down the track that's going to be very reasonable. So you've probably got lots of questions about a lot of other platforms. Oh, Zoom. Zoom is the one that people always ask about as well. There's a bit of controversy around Zoom for health consultations because there have been some security issues down the track. There can be downloads required. The interface is a little more clunky than some of them. So when I was making my choice, I took all that into consideration and decided against Zoom. Zoom can be really good for group classes. So if any of you are doing group sessions, that it can be really effective for that. So yes, have a little look into the history of some of these platforms and you know, make a good choice, make a good secure choice, which, you know, it stands you in good stead with your professional obligations. All right, that's usually a pretty big heavy one, and there's probably still questions, but I'll grab those at the end. All right, now in terms of your actual setup, this is really important as well. So on your end, make sure that your camera is stable. So it's tempting, especially if it's, you know, you're heading out and about, I don't know, doing your one supermarket run of the day, to grab your phone and do a consultation holding it like that. Well, it's a little bit Blair Witch Project. It's not a good experience for your client on the other end. So always make sure your camera is stable. Now, for most of you, it will be perhaps on a laptop to get started with, but it's very important that your camera is at eye level. It's much more professional and it's a much better way to build rapport with your client. So you'll see in the picture there that I'm set up with this is fabulous actually. It's called a tiny tower stand. It's a laptop stand. It's adjustable up and down, and it just allows me to elevate my laptop to eye level, so that my poor clients aren't having to look up my nostrils. Now, the next thing is really important to have good lighting on your face so that people can see you clearly. Now, if you're setting up in an office, that can mean making sure that you don't have a window behind you, that you have the key light source in front of you. If that is impossible because of the configuration of your office, then look at making sure you've got some sort of a heavy blockout blind and then a light source in front of you. It might be a lamp. So I just have, for example, a little lamp that I use that I can fold out just to help throw a little bit of extra light on my face. Professional background. So this is another one. Now, ignore what we're currently seeing in the land of Zoom and meetings and hurried transitions to working from home. We are all joking about that at the moment, that we've got dogs running around, kids running around, all of that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, we're health professionals. We need this to be professional. And obviously, we're charging people for the privilege of spending their time with us. So make sure you put a bit of thought into your background. It can be a pot plant. It can be an anatomical poster. It could be a little bit of your branding, just to give that impression that it's a professional setup. Now, it's important that the environment is quiet so that the audio is clear. Depending on what's going on around me and where I'm located, I'll usually wear a headset. Sometimes I'll use like AirPods or a wire-free headset so that I can move around if I need to demonstrate. Finally, if I know I'm in a very quiet environment, that my webcam actually has a really good speaker, so I can that will pick me up as well. If any of you out there are podcasters are awesome at great audio setup, so tap into their tips and skills. They often have amazing microphones and stuff set up on the desk, so that's something to consider as well. And as I did before, grabbing my shoulder model, if you are going to have props, so maybe you want your foam roller handy, maybe you want your spiker ball handy, maybe you want your, TheraBand handy, make sure those things are handy so that you're not having to interrupt the call and traipse off to run and grab things and run back. I mean, if you have to, you apologize, but a little bit of pre-planning just makes for a much more professional call. All right, so we all have a camera, generally speaking, in our laptops. So basically that means nothing really is required to set up. If you don't have a fabulous tiny tower stand like I do in the picture here, well, of course, there's always boxes and books. So really no excuse to get that sort of quality setup. It doesn't matter what your laptop looks like as long as what they can see behind you looks professional. But if you do like a gadget like myself, then some great tips can be to get a webcam. Now, this is what I'm using at the moment. It's a Logitech HD 1080p. I do believe there's been a rush on, unfortunately, in the time of Corona. Everyone is now working from home. But certainly there seem to be some tech online stores that still have these available. So just do a little scour online. Now, when I switched to the Logitech from the base, I was just using the default camera in my monitor. What I found was, I think I mentioned before, that suddenly I didn't need so much lighting. It was picking up a lot more detail and picking up a lot more light. It also means if your call quality is a little bit less, you've sort of made up for it with good quality of the resolution. That's the word I was looking for before, the resolution of your screen. So not compulsory. You don't have to run out and spend a lot of money to get started in online consultations, but there are good little things that can make it handy. Now, if you see that little picture to your right there, you can see that webcam, that's the webcam that can sit on top of your monitor or laptop. It can also be put on a little tripod. So if you want to start sitting down and then move to an area with a mat, for example, so you can demonstrate some things for your client, this is a great way to do it. Now, you're limited by how far your cord will reach, but these are all things that you can consider. It might be just turning 90 degrees so that you've got an empty space where you can have a bit more room to move around. So keep that in mind as well. Lighting as well, as I said, depending on your setup, test it out and see what you can use. Actually, another thing that I've used is also, I got a $20 strip of LED lights, just indoor LED strip lighting from Bunnings and put that around my monitor with it. And there was a little switch at the bottom. So I was able to sort of light up the monitor so that it was, you know, putting some light on my face. I've changed computers, so that's not there anymore, but there's all sorts of simple lighting options. All right, let's get stuck into the legal and safety nitty-gritty. And again, I'm going to reiterate that really your obligations are not very different at all to your bricks and mortar obligations. Now, one thing you must do to start with is to check your coverage for telehealth in your indemnity insurance. So see if there is a clause there covering you for insurance. And I'm sure Anna and the wonderful people at the Myotherapy Association might know a little bit more about if there is a standard coverage that you guys tend to use and if that has telehealth coverage. But obviously that's a really key and important one to check. Jurisdictions, look, I've put that there just to not open the can of worms, but to say in this shorter term, obviously the beauty is being able to stay connected to your local community and your beautiful existing clients. So stick within that area at the moment. And I guess big picture down the track, you need to be aware of what requirements you're facing if you start to do consultations, say, across country borders and that sort of thing. Now, yeah, I'm not going to go into that because, yeah, there's some tricky things. You then become, basically the bottom line is you're then not only guided by your own professional guidelines, but you can be then dictated to by regulations and requirements of the other country. So it's not as easy as suddenly I can treat the whole world. These things are completely unchanged. Your code of conduct is the same. You have to keep clients safe. You have to keep the information confidential. You have to follow your normal professional guidelines. You have to keep up to date with the updates in your profession. Professional development is just as important. And lucky for you guys, you're not restricted in advertising like the professionals can be. So basically the bottom line is all those expectations are the same. Now, data security, I was talking a little bit about the Australian privacy principles when I was talking about video platform selection. But basically, this is what governs the way we store patient files, patient information. Now, these apply to us whether we're operating in a bricks and mortar practice or online. And often we get more caught up in these because we're now in digital practice, but there's actually things we can brush up on and do a bit better in our bricks and mortar practice as well. So it's things like now if you're using apps and you're using iPads and all of that sort of stuff to access systems and programs or educate, all of that sort of stuff, any of those gadgets that has some sort of a pathway to access that clinical information, you need to make sure that that's protected. So for example, I've got my practice management software connected up on my phone and I can access my phone with a fingerprint. Well, who else's fingerprint is programmed into your phone? You know, often people might have their kids or their partner or something also programmed in so that they can get into their phone. Well, you just have to be diligent with the fact that, you know, is that a good way to go? Cloud-based softwares, they're only as secure as the password and where the password is kept and who has access to that password. So just be mindful of all of that. And as I said, applies online, applies in person. Now, where are things a little bit different? Well, when we talk about our record keeping, yes, we do have to keep our same clinical records, but now we have these video consultations as well. Now, there is an option for us with our client's permission to record those consultations, and that then provides us pretty much a 100% record of the consultation, which is a much more diligent record keeping than when we sort of scribble up some notes after we've seen someone. So if you do, you're then looking at dealing with storing those video files. However, A, you need obviously permission to do it, and B, you need to store those somewhere. Those files are too big to upload to your cloud-based practice management software, so they need to be stored securely somewhere. Now, the other thing is once you're dealing with clients online, you can often then collect digital files in all different formats for the one person. So for example, for my clients, I talked to you before about, well, for example, if they've had surgery, I'll get them to send a photo of their wound so I can have a close look at that. If they've, had a joint replacement or something. If they have, a particular quite specific area of pain, as I said, I might get them to take a photo with their hand on that pain. I may even have little videos of them doing their exercises so I can check their technique. I'll have those files as well. So all of those files need to make sure they arrive to your practice management software and that they're all stored under that client there. But think about where that document trail has been. So we might have saved something to our desktop. Is there still a copy there? We might have saved something to our Dropbox. Is there still a file there? So for our files to be sent to us, to be saved and to be uploaded to our practice management software, we need to make sure we're removing that digital paper trail as well to continue to be compliant. All right, I'm keeping an eye on the time here. So rebates, pricing, getting paid. Now, this is information you'll have to just be guided by the My Therapy Association, because it's literally changing hour by hour, and there's so much chatter online, rumors, information being passed around. The absolute best advice is to defer to your My Therapy Association, but also that they will be releasing that information as it becomes available officially. So, but I guess the really good news is that there seems to be definitely movement happening across all different insurers and compensable bodies accommodating the current situation. However, be mindful that this doesn't mean forever. So it's on us to do a really great job of these online consultations to show that they can be safe and effective, for all these insurers and compensable bodies to get good feedback from the clients that use them, so that they are more likely to continue these rebates into the future. So that's on us to make sure we do a really good job so that we can obviously get these continued benefits in the future. Okay, in terms of pricing, so I guess the first thing that I need to reflect here is that just because you've now switched to an online format, you still have exactly the same level of training, same years of experience, the same clinical reasoning and skill that you've developed. It's exactly the same. So that client is lucky enough to access all of that the same way. It's all in your head. And as I said, we sometimes place our value here, but really so much of it is up here in your head. So that is the same regardless of whether you're online or in person. You need to consider as well, especially with this rapid transition, if you're going straight into follow-up type consultations with your existing clients, they may be quite a bit shorter than perhaps what you would take for an initial consultation. So you need to sort of consider that. And is it at this stage a project in just keeping in touch with your clients and keeping that momentum going for when there may be an open up in the future? It may be shorter, catch-ups. And I think certainly this is something that the insurers and compensable bodies will be looking at is, are we doing a really quick few minutes check-in and then claiming a full rebate? They don't want to be seeing that. So you're either on a follow-up consultation, giving great value, taking the opportunity to do more education, taking the opportunity to really make that client go through their whole program of self-management techniques while you're watching to make a really good value consult. And if that is the case, that is parity in value to what you would be doing in the bricks and mortar space. Now, in terms of pricing though, if we sort of zoom out and look at, life after COVID, as I said, we started with just pricing per consultation, but over time we realized that what people wanted was their access to us, to have us as their coach on tap when they needed us for a period of time. And so we have a 1 week access package, a 4-week package, and a 12-week package. And so we go thoroughly through our initial consultation process. After our initial video call, they get a report with their rehab program, and then we're continually checking in with them across that period of time. Now, we advise people, depending on what type of condition or injury they have, as to what package would suit them best, but we also absolutely have the option of extending that package once that period is ended if we feel that they need it. The good thing about that window of care, though, is it's a good trigger for, do they need to see someone else here? Are they where I thought they would be in this period of time? So it can also be a good trigger us to say, well, look, we've done a great go at this sort of conservative management. Maybe you need to sort of follow this up with someone else. So that's an option that you might have down the track, is to sort of look at that sort of model. Yes, but the great news is, in certainly the rebates that we're seeing through the allied health that I've sort of been aware of, is it's the same. So they're rebating the same consultation cost as they are in person. But again, as I said, they will be watching, are we making use of that? Are we making good quality consultations with that time frame? All right, so then how do you get paid? Because you don't have someone walking in with their credit card, and when to take the payment as well. So I think we've just been very used to a traditional model where a patient comes in, get their treatment, walk out, swipe their card, payment after treatment. But in the digital space, we're given new opportunities, and allows us to think, I mean, are we just doing it that way because that's the way it's always been done? I mean, if you're booking a flight, you pay for the flight before you take the flight, right? And you don't even think twice about that. In fact, you get to the flight and you're like, oh, I paid for this ages ago. Isn't this fun? So we actually take payment before the video consultation takes place. That's also quite protective of our time in terms of if there are no-shows, but also it's very easy for us to hit the refund button if for some reason they can't do that consultation, and we understand we can certainly refund them. Now, how do we do that? We have a Stripe account, and that allows us, we actually have that connected up to our intake form, but to keep it completely simple, all you would need to do is to get a Stripe account. You can generate an invoice and then email that directly to the patient, and they can click on that, and there's payment, digital payment links through that, so they can pay, you know, just like they would digitally, online shopping or whatever. The great thing about a Stripe account, as I said, is refunds are easy. So you would just simply log in, you'll see that payment, and there's like a refund button right next to it. So if it turns out that they were not suitable for telehealth, or at the end of the day they wanted to cancel, even though they booked and paid, no problems there. You can set your own policy around that, but it's very easy to refund. Now, the other thing that I do know is that the practice management softwares are scrambling at the moment to make it a lot more easy for people to pay online, say at the time of making an online booking. So watch this space. I feel that like some are already through. Clinico, I know, was doing that. I think it's even maybe activated now. So it might be worth contacting your practice management software about that. All right, so we'll speed through this last little bit, which is actually quite important. How do you, calling it the pitch. Now, I don't want to get all Shark Tank on you, but it's really about what's the best way you can help a patient to learn about the benefits of telehealth, and therefore make it easier for them to say yes. So there's a range of things happening at the moment. Some people are just sort of saying, oh, sorry, we can't see you in person, but we can do a telehealth consultation. And the person goes, oh, no, I'm good, thanks. Versus people who take the time to educate. Maybe they've even written a blog post or created a video to send out to people to let them know that it can be safe, that it can be effective, that they can continue their care, and that they may or not be able to, you know, obtain some rebates as well. So, you know, it might be something like saying, look, I know that we can't see you in person, but we do have another option for you. Your therapist can provide you with a consultation and treatment through a video call. This has been shown to be really safe and effective. And, you know, people are often worried about the tech setup, but don't worry, we can hold your hand through that. Is this something you'd be interested in? Would you like more information on that, or would you like to make a booking? So I guess the message here is take the time to educate, because if we're all a bit new to it, well, certainly our patients are too, and it's our opportunity to educate. So what's the next steps? Well, if you haven't got one already, it's time to sign up for a video software. And there are free trials on most of them, if not free versions. So just practice operating it on both ends, as a therapist and as a patient. If you are set up practice with a practice management software, get online initial and online follow-up set up in your practice management software. Get your reminder email set up so that it has the instructions on how to access a video call. This might be time where all those friends and family members that always nag you for a free treatment, well, you can say, yes, your time has come. It's going to be via video though. So someone really close to you, practice that consultation. And even just after one, you will find you're so much more confident and that your brain kicks in on what do I need to know and what do I already know that I'm now just helping, you know, that person on the other end of the video with. If you're in a practice and there's a team of you, it might be that you all have a discussion and learn more about how to educate your patients and pitch to them the concept. And at the end of the day, the thing that's really important, especially when you're starting out, is that you take time. Block off plenty of time for each consultation so that you don't have to get in a flap about the tech if it doesn't work, that you can take time to over-deliver, that you can take time to step the patient through if they're having trouble with their tech. Educate beautifully. That's what you're really good at. And just wow your patients with a high standard of care, a standard of connection. They'll be feeling so vulnerable at the moment, and we've really got an opportunity to be someone special in this time for them. So at the end of the day, that's a bit of a cook's tour, probably a lot of information there and a lot of concepts, and I'll jump into the questions in a sec. But there are other like free resources, blog posts, videos at karenfinnan.com with, you know, a lot of this different information on a bit more detail on some of the things that we've talked about. So do feel free to jump over there and yeah, and have a bit of a look, and there's some, you know, learning options and stuff as well. Now, I am going to jump out of my slideshow. Oh, okay, so Daniel's gone straight into a demonstration on how the consultation would proceed. So this might be something that we couldn't fit in tonight, but yeah, obviously something that we need more time for because, you know, that's what the $1 million question. Obviously, I would be doing mine from more a physio perspective, but it might be that there can be, I don't know if there's anyone out there who might be game to do one in the myotherapy space. Volume of research, if that's something I'm able to share. Yeah, look, hopefully, Tim, you saw that you're able to access that table of research. Hopefully that's handy for you, and I can certainly send that link through to the Myotherapy Association too. What sites do I recommend to find out a platform security breaches record? Kai, my answer to that is actually just Google. So if you were looking at, so a lot of people say, you know, FaceTime, so FaceTime security breach or WhatsApp security breach. Word of warning, the AMA, the Australian Medical Association, don't look to them as the gold standard. There's been a number of bits of media out there where they're encouraging their doctors to do consultations on platforms such as FaceTime, WhatsApp, Skype. They certainly wouldn't be my choice, and I don't feel in my interpretation of the Australian privacy principles that they meet that. So yeah, so Google away. Oh, Matthew's used the Logitech, which is brilliant, and the built-in microphone is excellent, so that's great. And yes, indemnity insurance is something you have to look into. If there's a standard one that your body tends to have, you can look into it and that will cover, you know, you'll obviously then have the answer for everyone. But if some of you have insurances through different businesses, you'll need to look at that as well. Nicholas has asked for other options apart from Stripe. PayPal would be your other logical option there. And do you pay for the Stripe payments? So Kobe, the way Stripe works, it is sort of similar. It's like a modern, much more user-friendly version of PayPal. So it doesn't cost anything to set up an account, but they do clip a ticket for each payment that you process. Okay, Tanya is asking, do we need further training to do online coaching? Technically not. There's not a certification required. But for you, I would say it's your confidence that you can carry out your professional requirements, which is to be confident, effective, and to be comfortable yourself with it. So for some people, they'll kick into that sort of after just having a few goes or practices with friends and family. For other people, they might not get there. For other people, it might be that they take a little bit of time to sort of practice before really feeling confident in that space. So yeah, and Jesse's got another good question that I often get, and this is our last question, and I will let you all go. How much time do I allow for a client in each week? So how long are my consultations? Now, I would advise for you guys when you first get started, especially if it's a new client, to allow yourself at least, like just allow an hour so that you can just take your time with it. After you're a bit more experienced, you'll probably retract that to 45 minutes. I actually do my consultations in 30 minutes, but that's because we've now enhanced our whole assessment process with intake forms first. So we have a lot of information about them before we actually start the video call. And then in terms of follow-up, it really becomes about frequent communication that's quicker and shorter. If we're then a bit stuck on something, or they've had a flare up or something changes, then we'll jump on another video call. But in the packages that we do, we sort of allow that time. So what do? I get a cup of coffee in the morning and I sit down and I open my PhysiTrack and I respond to all the patient messages that have come through in the last sort of 24 hours. I set boundaries around when I'll respond to those messages, and for my clients, I set them an expectation of how quickly I'll answer those calls. So it's really important to have those boundaries too. All right, look, we've hit the 8:01 mark, guys. So I'm going to sign off here, but do keep in touch, and I'll be in touch with the association as well. And if you do have questions, let me know. I know that an actual demonstration is probably something we should do on another day. For time tonight, we couldn't get to it, but have a go yourself, and you might be able to do some problem solving. Thank you so much for your time tonight, guys. I hope this has opened your mind up to a few new opportunities that you may have, and certainly a bit of a vision in this really tough and tricky time. So guys, you got this. You're obviously resilient and amazing to even just be here tonight. So look, I hope that it's given you a little bit of light in what has been a really difficult time. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to sign off now. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll be in touch.